Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's Explore VA Facebook chat. My name is Brennan Mullaney. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director for a nonprofit called Team Red, White, and Blue, or Team RWB. Team RWB is an organization that enriches the lives of veterans by connecting them to their community through physical and social activity. You can learn more about us or join our team at www.teamrwb.org. We're honored to be here today to facilitate the discussion about vet centers. And before we get into that and learn a little bit more about what they are and how you can get access to them, I'd encourage you all, if you haven't, to check out explore.va.gov. It's a great one-stop shop for a lot of the benefits that you're entitled to from the VA. So there's a tremendous amount of information there. So if you haven't checked out that site, head on over there and take a look. So we're coming to you live today from the Vet Center here in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I have to my left three distinguished panelists who have come in from vet centers across the country to participate with us. I'd encourage you guys throughout the session to participate, ask questions. You can drop questions in the chat window that's right below this live feed. Know that all your questions will be answered, some here live on air, but all of them will be answered. We have 300 vet centers across the country that have staff standing by to answer your questions as well. So go ahead and drop those questions in there, and you can start that at any time. If you're actually on YouTube, I would encourage you to head over to Team RWB's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/TeamRWB. That'll allow you to participate fully in today's discussion and ask those questions. So let's go ahead and dive into it, and let's meet our panelists. So guys, welcome. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. If you guys could give the folks out there maybe a quick introduction of yourself, and Patricia, we'll start with you.
I'm Patricia. I'm a combat veteran. I deployed in 2001 to 2002 in the Afghanistan theater. I'm a retired Army officer. I'm a readjustment counselor at the Montgomery Vet Center in Montgomery, Alabama, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome, thanks.
Hi Brendan, I'm Roger, and I'm a Vietnam combat veteran. I was there in 71 and 72, and after my combat experience, I started thinking about college. Went to college, then went into the Marine Corps. Was in the Fleet Marine Forces for about 10 years active, and after that I went into the reserves, on and off active duty. Retired in 1996, and currently I'm a readjustment counselor for the Vet Center in Modesto, California, and I'm very pleased to be here too.
We're glad you're here, Roger. Thanks.
Rich Barbado. I'm the outreach specialist for the Lowell Vet Center in Lowell, Massachusetts. I'm an Iraq combat veteran where I served 03 to 04 with the 82nd Airborne Division.
Fantastic, guys. Well, thank you. Really appreciate that, and thanks again for being here.
Sure.
So let's just start with the simplest question. What is a vet center? Roger, you want to get us started maybe?
Well, I would say a vet center is it's one of those places. It's a little different than maybe a counseling clinic. We are what's known as a readjustment counseling center, but we're sort of low-keyed. We have a lot of employees that are veterans, and a good portion of those veterans are also combat vets. And if you were just walking in off the street, coming in, you're probably going to be met by somebody that's maybe going to college and working part-time at the front desk, maybe a OIF or EF vet that's working as one of our work studies. You're going to find somebody that's really glad to see you if you're a veteran and you have questions. We can point you in the right direction. You're going to get somebody, if you show up, they can talk with you. And if we need to do some other services, we can point you in that direction. In addition, if you call, you're going to get somebody a warm line, or you'll get somebody on the phone that can answer your questions. And so, I look at it as, it's whatever you are needing at the time, we can adjust ourselves to that.
That's great. Yeah, and it's worth noting that we have somebody standing by at all 300 vet centers right now. If you want to phone in, and you can find your closest vet center by dropping your zip code in the comment box below, and we'll get you connected. So, well, Patricia, can you maybe tell me a little bit more about some of the services, specifically as a readjustment counselor, maybe some of the counseling services that are provided at vet centers?
Okay. These vet centers are community-based, and we provide individual counseling, group counseling, counseling for marriage and family. So we do see families in the vet centers. We see veterans that have experienced military sexual trauma, and we also do some bereavement counseling services as well.
And we can also throw in direction to benefits counseling and some other services that veterans may have. They may just walk in with some general questions, and we can point them into the place that they need to go in the community.
Yeah, there certainly are a wealth of counseling resources. I for one, actually have taken advantage of vet center counseling, kind of really wanting to peel back into my experiences, specifically in combat, and found it to be very welcoming, very open, and just comfortable knowing that the person across from me, could really talk to me and understand a little bit of what I may have gone through. And for me, it was really interesting because I spent 27 months in combat without seeing too much combat, and to kind of, reconcile that and kind of, live with that has been very challenging for me, but I did find the vet center to be very welcoming and warm and understanding kind of what I was talking about. So, great. Well, I know, Rich, you're an outreach worker up in Lowell, so, what do you tell folks when where do you find veterans? I guess maybe is the first part of the question. And the second question is, what do you tell them about vet centers or what they'll find when they come there?
I think, there's in outreach, there's a myriad of different places in the communities throughout our area of operation where veterans kind of gravitate towards, whether it's, CrossFit gyms or tattoo parlors or veteran organizations, your American Legions, your VFW. So all of the high traffic areas where veterans are known to gravitate towards, that's where we're going to go to engage those veterans and to make sure that they're getting connected up with not just vet center services, but whatever benefits programs and services they might require. That's kind of our engagement strategy across the board. And what do I tell them? Well, I tell them that the services with our eligibility criteria are free and they're forever. You can engage a vet center if you need to come back. For any reason. That's something that they're authorized forever. People, even veterans that don't meet our eligibility criteria, we are still going to meet with them. We're going to get them squared away, and we're going to laterally transfer them to an element to get them connected up with whatever it is they're seeking. So vet centers have a lot of capabilities, and we understand the veterans' experience.
And this is open to veterans of all conflicts, correct?
Correct.
As far back as, obviously, Roger, you're a Vietnam vet, and
Yes.
I think, Patricia, you relayed a story to me once about, it's really never too late to reach out and talk to someone or seek that help if you're just feeling a little off or wanting to chat about it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Recently, I had a Vietnam veteran that came into the vet center, and he had been referred by another provider in the community. And he was really worried that his war had been so long ago. He was a Vietnam veteran, he had been back about 40 years, and he was convinced that he had been gone so long and nothing could be done and there was nothing to talk about and, people just wouldn't get it. And I think he's still coming, and I think that he found a small team that sort of, he found the environment very safe and trusting, and he was able to connect with some like-minded folks. He and I share stories. Our wars are, many, many years apart, but we're able to talk and kind of and get through some things. So today, I think he would say, hands down, I'm glad I came, and I'm glad I'm still, able to come because it's not too late.
That's great.
So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and going back, Rich, you mentioned something about a little bit about eligibility. Maybe we could talk on that, or you guys could touch on that. I don't know if Roger, if you want to take it in terms of kind of what are the breakdown of eligible and those who can kind of walk into a vet center and take advantage of services that are there.
Anybody can walk into a vet center. Any veteran, any family member. Because we're going to be there to ask you if we can help you, what's going on. Usually, if it's not the veteran themselves that have a specific question, it's maybe a parent or a loved one that has some concerns. Maybe the person that they knew prior to combat experience is different than what they are now experiencing, or there's some conflict and things like this. So we understand that it could be a wide variety of issues. And so come on in, we'll sit down, we'll talk, just kind of, you'll get somebody. And of course, that's one of the things that I think is really different, because we try to staff for work hours normal, but also we can adjust for extended hours if we need to. We have a lot of vets that are in school or they have jobs. We have families that can't really get everybody together until they've eaten and then come together maybe later in the day or evening. So we're willing and able to adjust. And so we do work through the eligibility thing. I think Patricia mentioned the type of counseling we do. And so, but if there's people who, let's say maybe they have a discharge that's other than honorable, or what we call bad paper, or they had some problems, they served honorably in war, did a great job, and then somehow when they came back they ran into some trouble, and they found themselves in a really predicament. And that's the time when they need to come down and speak with us. Don't spiral further. There's going to be people there that can help. And so we will work through that. In some cases it means getting you directed over to Veterans Benefits, to a service officer. It could be some educational things. We can get you in touch with the people over at the colleges. The vet centers are really good because we just take you where you are, and there's no rush or time limit, and you feel at home. It's kind of like a small unit. If you know what a squad or a small wing is, or a squadron, you come in and you have a team that we're going to watch your back. We're not going to leave you behind. There's that sense, and Patricia talks about that connection that vets make at the vet center. And as a person who took advantage of those services, I can tell you that is absolutely for real. I think many years went by up until I started working with OIF veterans, and realized that as a Vietnam veteran I had sort of done this myself, and almost immediately I had brothers that were connecting. It didn't matter my background, it didn't matter what kind of job I had or anything. You were a brother warder, or fellow warder, and a sister warder. So I think those are the things that as a service and eligibility and working through that we do really well.
I agree. I think it's really interesting to highlight, or it's important to highlight sort of the community-based nature of vet centers.
Yes.
Not that they're not just that they're out in the community, but that they essentially are a community.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons the vet centers, the vet center program is something that the organization I work for, Team Red, White, and Blue, has been very interested in partnering and working with, because really at the end of the day it's about people, and having someone to reach out to be there and walk with you, to support you. And whether you come to a Team RV event and get that through a physical or social activity, or you come to a vet center and get that in some way, I think it's just really important for folks to kind of take ownership. So great. Well, let's talk a little bit about maybe how, can you guys maybe comment on how vet centers are different from VA medical centers that we all are aware of?
Sure. I mean, I think primarily vet centers are community-based, so that we're forward operating in the community. On top of that, we have community access points that would be spread out further in the community, where we can see veterans in a myriad of different capacities. Just the accessibility, I guess, the non-standard hours. We don't cease operations at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If a veteran needs to come in past the banker's hours, we're going to meet the need of the veteran. We're gonna have non-standard hours. We're gonna support the veteran to the best of our ability.
And I know even the physical accessibility is something worth noting.
Right.
It's that vet centers are in strip malls and places where you drive up, you park,
Right.
and you walk right in the door,
Exactly.
right? It's a little bit different.
I think a lot of veterans, and if they don't know about veterans centers and they hear counseling, they think, clinicians and guys with clipboards and, that they're not gonna really connect, and we some of us are clinicians, okay? But we also have teams. We have people that, it's just amazing what our outreach workers, our advocates are doing. We are connecting with the veterans in the community on so many different levels other than just a clinical level, okay? So, and sometimes for veterans, they may not be ready to enter into that more intense therapeutic environment.
Sure.
And but they're still wanting to engage. So they may go on a ruck, a baton recognition or other event that's going out in town, and
there's yoga classes.
Yoga
at some vet centers. I know we get excited about that.
bowling,
Yeah,
I
there's all
think.
types of things.
So it's amazing that you'd think at a bowling alley with all the noise and everything that people would be all kind of, really aroused, but they're so cool and natural, and they're so inviting, all the vets. And yeah, the staff is sort of helping to sort of facilitate that. We want to make sure that veterans have a safe place to come to, whether it's out in the community in a rural setting, or if it's at a bowling alley, or if it's a pool table somewhere, or if it's in our own offices with brick and mortar.
Yeah.
I think that it's important for the veterans to know that they do not have to be enrolled in VA healthcare to come to a vet center. They do not have to be service connected. So if they come in, those things might come down the line, but if engaging the local vet center today does not require that.
Well, it's also 100% confidential.
Yes, it is.
And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but if active duty service members were to take advantage of the services, there's no responsibility or no tie to the chain of command or anything like that. Is that correct?
As far as confidentiality goes, it is strictly confidential. And we serve active duty veterans, National Guard, reserves, and family members as well too. And it's confidential, so that way it helps a lot establishing that trust and having people feel safe. They can talk and actually work through some of their readjustment issues and feel like, they can be, transparent about some things that are going on.
Sure. Well, we're going to get to some questions, I think, that are coming in through the Facebook chat, but I think the takeaway from our little discussion is that there's no reason not to give a vet center a try, right?
Absolutely.
They're accessible, they're easy, there's a tremendous amount of value or services to be gained, so it's worth seeking it out. And again, if you're looking for your closest vet center, for those who are on the Facebook chat, you can drop the zip code where you live in the chat window, and we'll have someone provide the contact information for that vet center, and get you linked up. And you can get on the phone, you can schedule an appointment. I know for me, I went down, I was working with the vet centers kind of professionally, but I wanted to go down and check it out, and I said, hey, I'd really like to talk to someone. I parked my car, I walked right in. They welcomed me. I did some intake paperwork, and I sat down and talked to someone. And then as soon as the next week, I was there with an appointment, and I was back, and it was that easy. So it was definitely worthwhile.
I can't wait to hear the questions, but I also want to say that some of the core values that we as veterans experienced when we were on active duty or maybe in combat or serving with each other, honor, integrity, all those values that really bonded us together and glued us together. I think, that's always hard to translate when you come out. You don't always have those experiences. And the Vet Center, I think, is able to provide that connection and the relationships. And so I've even heard some of my veterans say, "Wow, that was great. This was almost like active duty." And so it's like, and I knew what he meant. It was the camaraderie, the sharing of experiences, and those things that will be forever etched in our hearts and minds. So, I hope we get a lot of.
Well, we got our first one, so we're ready to get to
All
it.
right.
So our first question we have coming in is, would you explain how military families, including those whose loved ones died due to service, can access counseling at vet centers?
Okay, sure. There's a myriad of ways that we can get that information, because it can come through either through the veterans organizations and through I work in one of the areas in California, going through region. Many times I get word ahead of time because of my contacts out in the community of maybe some event that's happened that an active duty serviceman or woman has passed away, and that we're available. They can call us, or we set up an appointment and meet the needs that they have. And there's a lot of issues, obviously, because you're working through the stages of grief, but also there's some tasks. There's things that have to usually get done, and we can help them walk through that, whether it's getting them connected with the service officers or other counselors. And we can work with the family, not just maybe a wife or a spouse or the parents, but there may be siblings, and we want to make sure that everybody's needs. Sometimes siblings are kind of they sometimes are not given that same attention, and our connection with organizations like Blue Star and Gold Star Families, we've brought them into the family dynamic and constellation. So we're very sensitive about that. The vet centers, it's one of our missions that I think has given us a lot more depth, and it's just a more personal touch.
Sure.
Some of the folks that we've developed relationships with, it's years later and I'm still connected, whether it's through regional events that happen in the city of San Francisco, for example, through the Gold Star tributes, or something that's local. We feel that support, and that's another thing where we connect the veteran or the veteran's family, in the case of bereavement, to those organizations that are going to really enhance or help them to work with those grief and bereavement issues.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong part that we play in that.
Yeah, and in that, I think it's safe to say, kind of taking it back a step to Roger, is that the family kind of holistically, or loved ones, play a critical role in all this. And I know for me personally, the first time I sought counseling was because I had an old friend who said, basically point blank, you don't really smile as much as you used to, or laugh as much as I remember you, and that didn't really sit well with me. I mean, I didn't know exactly what that meant, or kind of what I was experiencing, or kind of what that meant for me, but I knew that that's not the person that I knew or that I wanted to be, and so it was definitely very eye-opening. So whether it's actually in sort of the counseling process, or even before you even walk in the door, it's just important to note how critical those people can be in stepping in and being a part of that. So, all right. Well, we have another question. It's similar. It's eligibility related, it looks like, and kind of in that vein. But the question is: can veterans, family members, and surviving families seek care at the vet center if the veteran did not serve in combat? Rich?
Yes, I mean, I think one of the universal answers here is, we would certainly not discourage any family member from engaging with the vet center. Quite the opposite. We want family members to engage us because, whether or not eligibility criteria is met, we still want people to come in so that we can get them connected up with. If they don't meet our eligibility criteria, then we're going to get them connected up with an element that can provide them the solution or the benefits of the services or the programs that they're seeking. You know, so I think the end state there is yes, absolutely.
Sure. And at the end of this kind of discussion, we'll have all the links posted where people can go and actually kind of read through the eligibility
Can
criteria.
you give us a concrete example
Yeah,
about
please do,
that?
Roger. That'd be great.
Because I was thinking of the serviceman who may be attached to, let's say, a National Guard unit. You know, he's signed up, he's ready to go, and something happens. He hasn't met the eligibility requirement to get a DD 214. And, you know, many times, you know, we may get word of that through outreach or whatever. And he may be in school, have no benefits at all, you know, none at all. And we can connect them with the community organizations, county mental health or health services, those organizations that are geared up to help them. There's even private providers out in our community that will assist those people who have no coverage to get coverage.
Sure.
And there are a couple of doctors that will you know, work with anyone who's you know, has that need. And so, you know, even if we aren't going to be the providers for those direct services, we can connect them to those that are. And that would be
Sure.
an example.
No, I think it's
So-
a great one, and the fact that you are going to connect with a human
Right.
is obviously a very important piece,
Yeah.
and the fact that they can get you to someone in the community,
Right.
and not, you know, across the country or elsewhere. There's someone ideally nearby that you can
That's
really
right.
see.
Every vet center person or counselor, outreach person I've talked to, I certainly haven't talked to all 300, but I've talked to many, and it's amazing. There's connections with county mental health, and so there's now services for incarcerated veterans, programs like vet court and things like that that you'll hear about that are really, you know, we got our finger on the pulse of what's going on. So.
Let's get to the next question. It was about bereavement services and what those entail. Patricia, can you tell us a little bit about what that means, or what the bereavement services one can find at the vet center are?
Actually, if a family,
It's bereavement counseling.
bereavement counseling for a family member, just number one is just contact the local vet center so we can see what's available and the services that the vet center actually offers. It might be, you know, something individual or something group-wise in the vet center, but it also may just be a connection or coordination with another agency
Okay.
to get that done.
Great, thank you. And I see a question up there from Gina that says, I think it's Gina, can you cover whether vet centers provide counseling service for active duty service members? And I think the answer to that's yes.
Yeah. Absolutely
It
do.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Certainly. So if you're out there and you're on active duty and you're looking to take advantage of a vet center, please give them a call.
Right?
And that, both men and women.
Men and women, yes.
Okay.
Patricia, maybe you can offer that. I know you as a female, but also as someone who sees a lot of families and female vets in your professional capacity. Maybe you could comment on what you would tell any women who are out there watching the broadcast.
So we covered the fact that if they're both men and women that have been to combat and other, they're eligible for services. But for women specifically, that's a you know, a high priority, and we offer some compassionate services at the vet center to maybe meet some unique needs that might be there with a female veteran. And we have a lot of women veterans programs. It could be individual counseling, but we have some exclusive women's groups that are available. We also have the group counseling that as well. So we do want them to contact their local vet centers also. We have some relationships with, and we coordinate care with VA and other community agencies to make sure their needs are met.
If I can add, and also a lot of our vet centers are situated close to active duty installations. Close to our vet centers, Hanscom Air Force Base. I know we have one in Fayetteville right outside of Fort Bragg. We have one up near Fort Drum. So we have a lot of our vet centers are geographically close to major active duty installations, whether it's Army or Navy or Air Force.
And if somebody's visiting their parents, or they happen to be on leave, or for some reason they end up in their community and they need our services, they can just give us a call or walk in. We'll
Or they can drop the zip code in the comment box.
Right.
And we'll connect it, because there's 300 of them out there,
Yeah.
which is incredible. So the next question, I think we covered this one, but it's worth repeating. Am I still eligible with a bad discharge? And I know, Roger, you mentioned bad paper,
Yeah.
and how that's one of the
Yeah.
differences between the VA Medical Center and vet centers.
That's correct. If you've served honorably in combat, but you don't have an honorable discharge, or you have a dishonorable discharge, or bad paper, as it's known, absolutely, we will honor your service by not leaving you behind, and will provide services as needed for you and for your family.
That's great. That's great to know. Well, I'm going to steal a question, because I get that luxury, I guess, since I'm asking the questions that are coming from offline. But I'm really curious to know if you guys can maybe tell me what's most rewarding for you about your work with vet centers, and on a day-to-day basis, which you find to be compelling or exciting, or what you enjoy most. Maybe Rich, anyone take it. I don't want to call.
I think, for me personally, it's just being able to see the result of, whatever services it is that we get the veteran engaged with, seeing that effect and seeing the payoff, and being able to be an integral part in assisting veterans with, getting connected with whatever it is that they're seeking. I don't think for me, there's nothing greater than that. I mean, it's just great,
Yeah.
So.
I just really quickly, because I went so many years as a Vietnam veteran, not really avoiding the VA, not really taking advantage of the benefits, and kind of working it out my way, which didn't go very well. It's really rewarding when we break down those walls to get help. Not just us breaking, because really it's the vet that is coming in, and we're working as hard as we can not to put any barriers up. We want you to come, we want you to connect, but just from a personal experience, the reward of seeing people engaged and seeing them have more hope, and it's not something that I can always quantify on a document.
Yeah.
Usually they tell us about our value and their value towards other veterans.
And I think that's a really cool thing, because I know when I walked in, sat down, had my first appointment, it wasn't, here's what we're going to do, it was, what do you want to do? Or what do you want to get out of this? Or what are your goals? And the fact that it was that user-friendly was really refreshing.
Right.
Patricia, you want to chime in on?
I think for me, what's so important and so valuable is a veteran just walking in or calling, and then when you finally get to meet them, you're the counselor, but you are prepared to listen, and to see their response to that is pretty amazing. And watching veterans grow over time and gain back quality of life, and we have a lot of parents, they begin to parent better, and their children start to thrive, and those are the things that it's just valuable to me. Extremely
You can't undervalue someone who's just willing to listen. It's
Mm-hmm.
extremely critical. So, well, thank you guys. Let's go to the next question here up on the screen. What are your hours of operation? I think it's vet center dependent, I would imagine.
They would
Yeah, the
have-
hours of the vet centers.
They would have to, the veterans, they could contact their local vet center,
Yep.
drop their zip code into the chat box, and
Yeah.
we could get them connected pretty quick here. And there are, they'll have some business hours for their area, wherever they are, but there are some non-traditional hours.
So evenings and
we are
nights, and I'm assuming
flexible.
in Alabama and California and Massachusetts,
Sure.
your guys' respective vet centers all have after hours.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you get onto the locator page of the VA where vet centers are located, and they give the location, there's even more information about those hours, and whether it's Saturday or extended hours in the evenings. And again, it's to meet the needs of those veterans that may need it, and to bring those services to them. And so we've all stepped up to the plate to do that, and we're working with our team. And so it's flexible depending on the needs, but to actually see it on the page and say, you know, they're open all Saturday morning.
Yeah, they're open until 8 p.m.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
That
It's
sounds
pretty
good.
cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next couple questions we have here. The first is, if I experienced a military sexual trauma, what proof is required at vet centers?
When if a veteran comes in, a man or a woman who has experienced military sexual trauma, initially you just need to contact us and come in, but otherwise, just the basic eligibility of serving in the military, and that was usually required at some point.
And that's important in the military sexual trauma cases because you know, there's going to be a lot of avoidance to coming into for services, and of course, you know, traditionally a lot of people, you know, look at statistics, and women, there's been a lot of women who've had that experience, but a lot of men
too. Yeah.
Yes, in fact, well, the number is actually greater, even though the percentage, you know, the per capita percentage is less, but the number is very great. So there's a lot of men that are coming into the center, and sometimes we're talking about other issues, and then it comes up and there's these incredible breakthroughs, and you know, they feel safe and they're feeling supported, and it's like those unmentionable things that maybe they couldn't talk about are now being addressed, and there's nothing but support. You know, I mean, that's one of the most, that's another rewarding part of the job is my work is to see people grow in that way, and they face those things, and they don't have to avoid and try to anesthetize some of those feelings that they've been struggling with.
Speaking of growth, Rich, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot because we were talking beforehand, and you kind of, you know, were communicating your story to me about, you know, how you came to, you know, get out of the Army and go home, and how you found the vet center. I was wondering if maybe you could share that with everybody out there, because it just was, it resonated with me, and no doubt it'll resonate with someone out there who's listening.
Absolutely.
If you're willing to do that.
Sure. So I mean, when I came home, I think you know, I went through the standard readjustment process for combat vets coming home and feeling kind of lost, and you know, going through the motions with a job that I, you know, by necessity had to, you know, link up with for survivability more than anything else. It didn't have visibility on my benefits. I didn't know that I, you know, could go back to school, et cetera, and so forth. So was stuck in a rut, and had, you know, engaged and buddied up with some Vietnam vets from my community, and they very directly said to me, you need to go, and you need to go and sit down with somebody, because what we're seeing in you is what we now know of what was present in us when we came home from combat. And it was a game changer for me. It was a big game changer. My whole life shifted. So, and at that time, you know, just information dissemination was slow as far as the trickle down to my level about what was out there and available to me. And as soon as I kind of got engaged and got linked up, everything changed. Yeah. So it was veterans. It was fellow veterans who I was receptive to listening to, and whose counsel I was going to accept because they've been there and done that on a couple of different levels, and hopefully that's what I bring to the effort in connecting with veterans, you know, combat veteran to combat veteran, or just veteran to veteran, period.
Sure.
And saying, hey, look, you know, I found it within me. You know, you can find it too.
That's great. Well, we appreciate you sharing. And I think it's interesting that you saw a picture of yourself or your units.
That's right.
When you first walked into that center.
That's right.
That's a
That's
small world.
Yeah.
Goodness. All right, let's get to our next question here. What proof do I have to give in order to talk to someone at a vet center? I think they're talking about identification, or any comments on that? Tricia, do you know?
When they first come in,
Yeah.
on the first visit, they need to just identify as a veteran, a combat veteran, and we'll go from there as far as they'll get to meet a counselor, learn more about the services, and then the counselor will take them the rest of the way on what else they need as
Right.
far as planning out to continue services.
Yeah, that's,
A lot of people carting around aren't carrying their DD-214s.
well, and I was trying to think back when I first walked into a vet center. I don't think there was any of that. I literally, I don't know if I gave a driver's license maybe and said, hey, I'm a rock vet, and I filled out some intake paperwork.
You probably didn't have your DD-214.
I definitely didn't have
Oh,
any.
I've had vets come in with a rucksack, and they said, I think I left it out in the field somewhere where I was living, and we've had to go request their paperwork from the last unit or service that they were part of, and with those veterans at a particular time may have to go back to archives, but we work with you and we'll see you. We're not going to interrupt what you're needing at that moment. We'll take you on face value.
I guess the takeaway, I mean, if somebody's thinking about it, just to head down and talk to somebody and we'll figure out kind of
Right.
Yep.
the paperwork portion on the back
That's
side.
it.
Yeah.
That's great. So we got a question from Blake here, who he asks, and let me read this one here. I am in the VA system and receive monthly payments, but haven't been to a center in years. How do I start the process up to see what services I am eligible for? What the regional office said I need to reapply online. What do I do?
Sounds like a benefit question.
A little bit, yeah. I think obviously, Blake can head down to his local vet center and get some in-person support. But one of the things I'll just mention, I mentioned when we started, was Explore VA, which is another great resource for the whole portfolio of benefits that are at your disposal through VA. And so I think that's explore.va.gov. Folks can go there and check that out. There's everything from obviously your benefits to just the whole wealth of services, and it's a pretty user-friendly website. So.
And everybody in the vet center is pretty connected with the veteran service organizations in the community, as well as in California, the counties. They work with the veterans to apply for any benefits that they may have, working with things like burial and getting them connected with those services too. So we're pretty well connected with everybody. That if you're just looking to get an answer real quick, give us a call or come on down.
Yeah, it's just amazing how that thread of community can be so critical to answering some of these questions and solving some of these problems. I mean, that's the premise that the Team RWB, my organization, operates off of, and we see time and time again that there's a tremendous amount of resources, organizations that are there to serve you, to support you out there, but there's really seldom one place to go that's going to do it all. But having those connections, knowing what you're looking for, and then having someone, a person who can sort of plug you into that is critical in my opinion. So. All right, let's get to Sherry's question. Can you be more specific on how vet centers help veterans with the symptoms of PTSD? I'm going to look to that couch with our readjustment counselors for that one.
Sure. Oh, I love it. No, when we have somebody that is working with those kinds of symptoms, that PTSD kind of presents itself with, a lot of it involves issues that may be family or relationships if they're having problems in the present moment. But they may also have been in a stressor situation that we define as a trauma. And so we in our assessment process, of course, we're utilizing all the tools we have to do that assessment. But we're also doing it in a way so that we're also letting the veteran know, if he's alienating or he's feeling very isolated or disconnected. So I've heard many times people say, I feel numb, and I just can't get organized. And it's maybe even a sense of, I don't know who I am. I know what I was like before, and I did this great job while I was in, but now I'm, going to school, or I got this job, and I just, it's not working. Something's not quite right. So it's really important to, for us to get in and offer. And there's some specific things that we do. You know, we like to call it readjustment counseling. You know, we can treat and do those what are known as evidence-based approaches to treating those symptoms. And so a lot of the clients that we get, a lot of veterans, it's interesting because in the milieu of talking to other vets, they'll even talk and validate how helpful their personal counseling has been to be a little more relaxed and more connected. And so I think it's a great thing that as clinicians we get to kind of address those specific issues and use those approaches that we know can be very helpful, not just with the individual, but also with the family, within the family systems.
Yes. I think it's great points, and I think it's worth. I mean, it's amazing how, and I know I did this personally, was that I was always looking to my left and right and saying, well, I didn't see what that guy or gal did, or I didn't do what that individual did, and I was in some ways kind of trying to, just rationalize what I was going through or where I was and what I was feeling. I think the fact that it really doesn't matter where you are. There's value in coming in and just talking about it. We'll help you kind of figure that out. I think it's really important to note.
One of the neat features about the vet center is when you come in and you meet the counselor, they help you. They'll ask you some questions like, "How's your life going?" It may not necessarily be what are your PTSD symptoms,
right,
because we do treat around the symptomatology of PTSD. But it's more about getting the veteran back into their lives.
Sure.
So we start there and we kind of just meet them where they are. And as they come in and as we work through where they are in their lives right now, we'll eventually get to the symptoms. But usually, sometimes that's not where we start. We just start with life in general. So
that's great. Well, for the folks who are out there, keep the questions coming. We got a little bit of time left here. We're going to get to a few more, but if you drop your question in the chat window right below where you're watching us, someone will answer it. We assure you that. We might not get to it here on the broadcast, but someone will get to your question, no doubt. So, all right, our next question comes from Mike, who's asked, I like this question. How can we get vet center staff or a mobile vet center to our upcoming outreach event? I'm really hoping that Mike is a Team RWB member somewhere across the country.
So I think from an outreach perspective, we're engaged throughout the community and providing. Well, let me back up for a second and explain what a mobile.
I was going to say, let's touch on that.
We'll start with that. So mobile vet centers are little mobile counseling facilities. They're kind of like RVs. There's larger ones, which are the big motorhome type ones, and then there's smaller ones. There's several different applications of how MVCs are employed and implemented across the vet center system. Some of the uses are for vets that live in more rural areas, so that you have a mobile element to go out and to meet them where they are. For outreach events, it's a good way for us to engage the community to have a little mobile base of operations to disseminate outreach materials for our clinicians to meet one-on-one with folks if that's what they want, but really just to get the word out there about what we do and what's out there and available for veterans. So I think the easiest way is just for anybody, any organization or veterans to engage the vet center that's geographically closest to them and kind of take it from there. I think there's also a way to you can request online.
I think there is.
Right.
Do you guys know how many mobile vet centers are in the fleet? I saw that once. I can't remember. I'm sure there's probably enough to get around.
There's 80.
80?
Yeah, and it's really not just the events, because you'll see the stickers as like this, among other things. But once we get out there, people are coming around and they're talking. Sometimes you get a World War II vet and a family member that just, hey, they see veteran, they wearing their hat, or a Vietnam veteran or OIF that we got, and you're talking and asking questions. Next thing you know, it's like you can tell that the guy wants to talk, and the mobile vet centers are set up so that you have a place to go.
Real time, right there.
Right there,
On the spot.
on the spot, confidential, and closed door, and it's just you and that either outreach worker or readjustment counseling therapist that you can start to engage and maybe sometimes people process some feelings there. So I've done it a few times. It's always a great experience as a clinician to team up with the outreach workers, or we have other benefits. Sometimes healthcare is out there.
Yeah.
It's a great team work to go out to an area and be part of that.
Yeah, and I guess part of the question was asking how, requesting them, but what type of events? I mean, I'm assuming they don't have to come to veteran-centric events, although I would imagine, if there's somebody who's, local VFW or American Legion Post is having an event, that might make sense to put in a request for a vet center, but
Yeah.
just really anything in the
just-
community where vets
Please.
might come out?
I think it's just based on the geographical location. There are different events in different areas. I've seen MVCs at the state fair,
Yeah.
at the Veterans Day Parade, or something like that.
Boston
but-
Marathon.
The Boston
Yeah.
Marathon.
Public events
Yeah.
where there are gonna be high traffic, veterans are gonna.
I think once you get that request in too, if you're a startup, let's say, and you're, a stakeholder, stakeholders in the community, and, you can work with the vet center and their management and kind of sift through those kinds of planning issues. And that's really useful, because that can be helpful for those that are requesting, as well as making sure that we're, putting that resource at the right time in the right place.
Well, they're out there, so
Yeah.
the viewers might see them in their community, so make sure
Yes.
you go over and say hi. All right, let's get to another question here. What's the difference between a vet center and a VA medical center? Which I know we touched on that very briefly earlier, but maybe we can expound upon that a little bit.
We did talk about earlier the fact that it's a community-based, center. It's small. The community-based counseling practice is what it really is. There's a small team there, and there are fewer. You don't have to be enrolled in VA healthcare
Right.
to come, and you don't have to be service connected or something like that. You don't have those access issues getting in there.
It's a good question, because, we have clinicians at
Right.
the vet center, and the medical side has clinicians and physicians. And so, we don't, by organization, we don't have physicians or psychiatrists on staff, but we consult with them when we need to. The fact that we can put readjustment counseling, and that in law and how we're chartered and how we're organized really allows us that flexibility, which that has been the real key that veterans themselves say that is different, and it resonates different for them. It doesn't mean that they're not getting the high quality care at a medical center, but I think it's the type of care that combat veterans and those who've had trauma, military sexual trauma, or bereavement issues that we're really specialized at doing. And it's kind of I've even heard somebody say it's kind of like the special ops of the VA. And
So you guys are all the special ops of the VA?
I've
Sort
heard
of,
that too.
yeah, it's we're and being a Marine, we understand small and core,
Sure.
and camaraderie is around core units, whether it's the 82nd or Ranger battalions, so I think that spirit, esprit de corps, they try to maintain that within the culture of the vet
Well,
centers.
it lends itself to a different feel. Right?
It does.
I would imagine
Yeah.
just even walking in the door, and I kind of communicated how I've done it. It's very different to walk into this Silver Spring Vet Center right here versus walking into the DC VA Medical Center. And it's not to, it's not to take away from the great care
yeah.
that's provided at medical centers, but it's really just a different flavor, and hopefully it strikes a chord with someone. And
Right.
so, all right. Well, and you touched on this, Roger. But we get back to. We have a question about. Can you explain vet center confidentiality? I know we talked a little bit before. Is there anything to add to that we
Well,
can touch on?
I think that's one of the first things that's gonna be brought up when a veteran comes in is our privacy and confidentiality policy, that, whatever's discussed between whoever the veteran is meeting with and whoever that veteran meets with moving forward within the vet center, that it's 100% private and confidential.
Yeah.
That it's not gonna go outside of the vet center unless there's a significant safety, reason with the veteran's safety.
Do you find that as a sticking point, Rich, for some vets in doing your outreach? I mean, you're out there, you're trying to find veterans, you're trying to make them aware of vet centers, or your vet center probably specifically, and the services that are provided.
Mm-hmm.
Is confidentiality something that has them concerned? Or what I guess maybe the better question is, what are the things that are preventing people from taking advantage of this?
Well,
very
I think
resource?
that privacy is a concern for some veterans. It depends on what they're involved with. I think some veterans that are first responders involved in law enforcement, that privacy it features pretty prominently.
Same for active duty service members.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean, and that's hopefully what the outreach element and people that make their way into the vet centers, that we're destigmatizing that, and we're providing veterans with the visibility that it's private and confidential.
Yeah.
And we address these issues up front too, because like if you do, let's say, law enforcement, the veterans will kind of let you know what their feelings and thoughts are on that subject, and so we do talk about the usual kinds of things like safety and risk, and how that confidentiality isn't always just a big all or nothing kind of thing. It can be limited. And so we try to deal with things on the lowest level as possible. It might be just, hey, can somebody check on you, to make sure things are okay, or, depending on the level, we have to increase it. But, we're trying to do what's best for the veteran, and yes, all those real world things, but like a family, and we join with our veterans. We're going to hopefully get into that dialogue and maybe work something out. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to compromise his position in a job or something like that. But he's got a safe place to talk.
Well, I think this is going to be our last question, at least on the live broadcast, but it's worth repeating that if people have additional questions, they can continue to put them in the comment window, and we'll definitely get them answered. This question comes from Rebecca. What types of clinicians staff vet centers? So I guess, we know combat veteran clinicians, but I guess maybe that's referring more to certifications or licensures, or maybe, I'm guessing, I don't know. Patricia, if you want to
that one?
Sure, combat veterans, men and women both, but we're readjustment counselors. So in the vet centers, you might find a marriage and family therapist, who's truly a licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed clinical social workers, licensed professional counselors, and some psychologists in some areas as well. So that's not all of it, but those are some of the types of professional providers you'll see on staff.
Someone qualified to meet you where you're at.
Yes.
And we may even have social work associates or marriage and family interns that are supervised by licensed staff. And one of the things I really like about the working as an employee or readjustment counselor is that we have an outside supervisor that comes in. And that gives us, as caregivers, the support we need to make sure that we're on track, that we're, taking care of how we deal with walking alongside combat veterans and people that have a myriad of issues, whether it's family or individual. And so I think, as far as the type of clinician that comes in, it's wide open, and it's going to probably even be more so. There's a lot of surge and need out there. So that's, if you're a clinician, you're going to get a lot of support.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're gonna wrap it up here. Any parting thoughts from you guys? Any other things you'd like to communicate to the group that's out there watching, other than it's worth coming down to your local vet center and giving it a try?
I think if anybody's hesitating and engaging and moving forward with checking out a vet center and seeing what's out there and available to them, I would say to them, just move forward. Go and check out your local vet center, see what's going on. Hopefully we've addressed kind of the inner workings and the nuts and bolts of it, but, you know, I would encourage veterans to go and you know, take that step.
Well, with that, I really wanted to say thank you to you guys for being here and being a part of this discussion. Hopefully answered some questions out there. And really beyond that, thank you for the work that you guys do in vet centers every day. I know as someone who works for a veteran service organization, I mean, you guys play an extremely critical part of this puzzle, and it's just a pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you guys this afternoon. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
So just for everyone who's out there viewing, just know that you can continue to drop your questions in the chat window below. We do have some staff that will be continuing to answer those questions, get you connected with your local vet centers as needed. You know, like the panel said, we'd encourage you to seek out your local vet center. There's 300 of them out there. They're in your community. They're standing by. They're prepared to help. So go give them a chance. I'd also encourage you to give Team RWB a chance, or go check them out. As I said, teamrwb.org. You can join our team and see what we got cooking. We were honored as an organization to be a part of this chat and to sort of facilitate here. A couple other resources worth mentioning, and these will be posted once the chat session or the broadcast ends. But there's a hotline that you can always call, 1-877-WAR-VETS. You can also visit www.vetcenter.va.gov. So one final thank you to our panelists for making the trip and being part of this. And most importantly, thank you to all of you guys who are out there watching. We really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to participate with us. Have a great rest of the day.